Hello everyone! In this build guide we'll be looking at a class that was left behind from Oblivion, the Acrobat. Rather than a circus performer that tumbles for the entertainment of others, in this case the term Acrobat refers to agile burglars that elude detection with gravity-defying feats. Acrobats are essentially thieves that avoid detection by stealth and rely on mobility and cunning to avoid capture. The curious and mischievous nature of the acrobat ensures that he finds himself in no end of trouble, but his singular physical abilities also ensure he's always finding ways out of it. The streamlining of skills from Oblivion to Skyrim has been well documented and well debated. For the most part, those cut skills have some representation in Skyrim, but one aspect of gameplay in Oblivion that has been left with no workable alternative in the newer game is the acrobatic skill. This skill scaled directly with your character's jump height and damage reduction on falling great distances. It also allowed you to dodge roll and skip across the surface of water with a series of timed jumps. While I haven't been able to reproduce these all exactly, I've found a few mods that at least convey the feeling of this ultra-mobile thief playstyle in Skyrim. So, in this build guide, we'll look at key mods, attribute distribution, standing stones, key perks, roleplay considerations, and suggested playstyle. Let's get the guide started with a few key mods that will be needed to enable the playstyle of the Acrobat. There are 3 key mods that I've used to enable the Oblivion Acrobat in Skyrim, namely Classic Classes and Birth Signs Reimagined, Better Jumping SE, and TK Dodge. I'm also running the full suite of Skyrim overhaul mods which help in fleshing out this experience. These include, but are not limited to, Imperious Races of Skyrim, Ordinator Perks of Skyrim, Andromeda Standing Stones of Skyrim. Classic Classes and Birth Signs Reimagined is a great mod for those of us who miss the class system from Oblivion. The reimagined version of this mod is highly compatible with just about any other mod you might happen to be running, and provides some very nice skill boosts and passive abilities that do a great job at directing your play early on. For the Acrobat, skill boosts are provided for archery, one-handed, lockpicking, pickpocket, sneak, and speech. So we'll be focusing on these skills exclusively throughout our build. Classic Classes and Birth Signs Reimagined also provides passive abilities for the Acrobat class, causing you to regenerate stamina 15% faster and to ignore 75% fall damage. This is a very nice ability, but is really only one half of the equation for the Oblivion Acrobat, so we still have some modding work to do. Better Jumping SE is a hidden gem, and I recommend it for anyone's base mod list. By default, it enables jumping while sprinting, but if you dig into the text file included with the mod, you'll find that it does much more than that. For all these settings, you'll want to double-click the mod in the left pane of MO2 and select the Text Files tab, and click on the betterjumpingse.txt file on the left. Here, you can actually set the number of jumps your character can do, effectively enabling double jumping and more. You can also modify jump height settings for both the base and extra jumps. I set jump count to 2 and jump height multiplier for second jump to 2.5. This enables double jumping with the second one going 2.5 times higher than a regular one. I found that this setting allows the player to get atop most single-story roofs in the game, and with some creativity, you can get on top of most buildings in the game. Fair warning though, these are the areas you're not meant to get to, so there are some cases where things aren't quite right. This being said, I was surprised just how well most inaccessible areas work. Finally, this mod allows you to set a perk used for unlocking the double jump. The default example is the Lightfoot perk, which I found to be fairly ideal. It's a vanilla perk in the sneak tree that also appears in Ordinator. In my opinion, this perk is a little underpowered, as it provides nothing that can't be achieved simply by paying better attention to where you're stepping. So this adds much more value to the perk. Also, with a requirement of 50 in sneak, you do have to work a little bit to unlock double jumps, but not so much that you'll have to do without this build-defining ability for very long. TK dodge is something that I've had in my base mod list forever. However, it becomes even more important for the Acrobat as it reintroduces something available in Oblivion that isn't possible in vanilla Skyrim. To maximize the acrobaticness of your TK dodges, I suggest lowering the stamina cost to 5 and cranking the invincibility time to the highest amount possible at 0.6 seconds. Also, keep the step dodge animation disabled. This will set you up as a perma-tumbling mad lad for the rest of the game. In addition to these key mods, I used some of Anision's great overhauls to flesh this build out. Namely, I used Imperious Races of Skyrim for the prowl ability of the Khajiit race. With this ability, if you jump while sneaking with weapons sheathed, you'll shoot forward at great speed. This is already a great mobility tool, but with our new double jump, this gets even better. You now get the prowl dash with both jumps, allowing you to traverse great distances without touching the ground. This is invaluable when going from rooftop to rooftop while avoiding crowded city streets, as well as for bridging wide chasms in the wild. I also made use of Anai's awesome Ordinator perk overhaul mod, but I'll handle the perks in their own section. For attributes, the Acrobat does not use magicka, so we'll focus entirely on health and stamina. For every 5 levels, I put 3 points into stamina and 2 points into health. Stamina is the first priority since it's needed for the Khajiit prowl leap in Imperious, TK dodge rolls, slowing time, and dual-wield power attacks. Stamina should enable the player to avoid damage, which is why it's weighed more heavily than health. That being said, health still gets 2 out of every 5 points because eventually you will get hit, and you'll have no armor to reduce the damage. This means lots of one-hit deaths on legendary difficulty, so a continued investment in health could be a wise move. However, if you're confident in your gameplay skills and looking for a challenge, go ahead and try pouring all attribute points into stamina. I dare you. Using the Andromeda Standing Stones of Skyrim mod, I took the Thief Stone to start, mainly for the experience progression boost to the Thief's skills. Once my Thief skills were all leveled up, I took the Tower Stone as it gives fun targets for treasure hunting, which fits in perfectly with the rest of this build. Using the Ordinator Perks of Skyrim overhaul mod, I found several perks that really help flesh out the playstyle of the Acrobat. As the Acrobat is a Thief class at its base, your Sneak skill will be your first priority. In addition to the obvious Sneak Mastery and Sneak Attack Damage buff perks, there are a few specific perks you'll want to take to enable the Acrobat's unique playstyle. With the new double jump mechanic, you'll want to get the Light Foot perk as soon as possible. This perk really unleashes the Acrobat's gameplay, as you'll now be able to make use of rooftops to stay hidden, and sniper perches that are inaccessible to other characters. The Lightfoot perk is the absolute best perk for this build, so get it as soon as possible. At sneak level 40, the dynamic entry perk becomes available. This introduces a brief physical 40% damage buff after a silent roll. This does require taking the silent roll perk at sneak level 30, which is rendered useless by the TK dodge at its base, but the 40% buff is huge enough to make the 2 perk investment worth it. And since this class does not use magic, you should have plenty of perks to distribute by end game. In any case, getting a buff for being more acrobatic really helps to grow the unique identity of this class build. The Clean Escape perk tends to run below the radar for most players, but for the Acrobat, it makes a lot of sense. With this perk, if you stand still for 8 seconds, enemies within 150 feet will stop searching for you. If you can make your way to a rooftop where enemies can't get to you, and just sit tight for a few seconds, the NPC detection algorithm will be reset, and you can continue on your way much more quickly than you could if you were to just wait out the vanilla detection algorithm. To me, the core gameplay of the Acrobat is all about getting into places you shouldn't be able to get into, and taking things you shouldn't be able to take. So lockpicking is a natural next priority for perking your skill trees. At lockpicking level 20, I suggest taking the Game of Fate perk immediately. I love this perk. This hides 5 Dragons of Fate in random locked containers throughout the game. They are very few and far between, but when you find one, it becomes a huge event. When removed from the container, they reward the player with 15,000 gold and a free perk point. Game of Fate encourages exploration and compels the player to sneak into every open window looking for locked boxes to break into. At skill level 30, you're able to take the Robber's Eye perk, which will randomly select a locked container from an unowned interior location and add a whole bunch of really good leveled loot to it. Much like Game of Fate, this encourages the player to break into every building possible, looking for locked boxes to break into. I suggest taking this entire subtree, as the higher level perks make finding these containers a more frequent and rewarding event. The core of the Acrobat's offensive abilities is establishing an inaccessible sniper perch and firing arrows at hapless enemies. And there are a few perks in the archery tree that help strengthen this tactic. You can take the first rank of the Steady Hand perk at archery level 30. The first rank allows you to zoom in, which helps when lining up long shots at odd angles. However, the real usefulness of this perk comes at ranks 2 and 3 when it actually slows down time as you zoom. This helps convey the crazy reaction time of a twitchy Acrobat character. This mechanic is also very useful once you've been detected. Also at skill level 30, you can take the Long Shot perk. There are also 3 ranks to this perk that add a damage bonus based on distance from your target. Since there are a few areas inaccessible to the Acrobat, you should be able to carefully line up your long shots for max damage and safety. In addition, the entire long shot subtree will buff your sniper shots, so they're all worth taking at some point. At skill level 50, you can take the Ranger perk, which allows you to move at full speed while your bow is drawn. This keeps well with the ultra-mobile theme, keeping you speedy in ranged combat even when detected. This perk does require you to take the Clean Kill perk, however. Fortunately, that perk is also useful as it gives a 20% damage boost against targets with full health. Since the Acrobat is a specialist at avoiding and evading enemy attacks, melee skill is a bit less of a priority. However, Skyrim does like to force you into open combat from time to time, and it's good to have some melee skill to fall back on in a pinch. Since we have an invincible dodge roll at our disposal and no block skill to rely on, the Acrobat is well suited for quick dual-wielded dagger combat. Here are the perks I found most useful. At one-handed level 30, you can take the Ravage perk, which gives an attack speed boost of 20% at rank 1 and 35% at rank 2. Both ranks are well worth taking. A 35% boost to attack speed effectively translates to a 35% boost to DPS, or damage per second. And if you use enchanted daggers, which I highly recommend, you'll effectively get a 35% boost to those effects as well, since they apply with each hit. The rest of the perks in this subtree are worth taking if you can spare the perks for them, or if you find yourself in open melee battles frequently. These basically boost damage and attack speed in various ways. At skill level 20, you'll want to take the Disciplined Fighter perk. This reduces the stamina cost of your power attacks by 15 points. As a dual-wield fighter, you'll want to focus on those power attacks, so this reduction really adds up over the course of a battle. At skill level 40, you'll be able to take the Furious Strength perk, which buffs your power attack damage based on stamina levels. Since you'll primarily be power attacking as a dual-wield fighter, and primarily focusing on building stamina with each level up, this will help your daggers pack quite a punch. Also, decapitations. Since the Acrobat has no crafting talent, your equipment will be limited to what you find in loot and what you can buy from vendors. This includes arrows, which you may find yourself frequently running out of. Leveling and perking your speech tree can help mitigate this, making equipment more affordable when stocking up for your next adventure. At speech skill 40, you'll be able to take the business relation perk, which gives you a permanent 30% discount with the next vendor you talk to. I used this with Fiata, the Fletcher in Solitude. This reduced the cost of arrows and bows purchased from this vendor, who seemed to consistently have the highest level archer gear during my play. At skill level 50, you can take the Salesman perk, which allows you to sell any type of item to any vendor. This just allows you to sell more items to Fiata, enabling you to buy more bows and arrows from him. At skill level 70, I highly recommend taking the Fence perk, which allows you to sell your stolen loot at legit vendors. This expands your pool of available places to sell your stolen items, resulting in more money faster, enabling you to buy better equipment and training as soon as possible. While the Honed Metal mod provides highly tempered and enchanted gear to non-crafting characters, I really want to encourage you not to use it. Crafting skills are very powerful for all playstyles and can really betray the unique identity of class builds such as this. To really experience these classic classes, I recommend limiting yourself to the tools provided by the class. This makes finding that perfect bow or amulet at a vendor or in random loot a huge event. Though the Acrobat prefers burglary heists, his singular physical abilities also make him a natural pickpocket. There are a few perks in the pickpocket tree that help with this playstyle. At pickpocket level 50, you can take the Lawless World perk. This slowly decreases any current non-violent bounties until they are eventually wiped out. Inevitably, your thiefly adventures will lead you to getting caught, and you'll have a bounty placed on your head. While the Agile Acrobat should be able to avoid arrest without too much difficulty, that bounty will be permanent. Until now. At a certain point in your playthrough, you'll have stockpiled more arrows than you can ever fire, and max out training in all skills. Once this happens, you may find it hard to find things to spend your massive piles of septums on. What better way to spend it than on more perks? At skill level 90, the Dragon Horde perk does just this. The perk does require taking at least 4 perks lower down in the tree, but if you're already taking the Mastery perks and the Lawless World perk, that reduces it to an extra commitment of only 2 perks. You'll make those 2 perks back with your first 100,000 gold, which should come fairly quickly this late in the game. In Ordinator, much of the agility-based perks and abilities are moved to the Light Armor skill tree. I would recommend against perking into Light Armor, however, as part of this build's unique identity and challenge lies within its complete lack of armor. This forces you to focus entirely on avoiding damage rather than blunting it when it's incurred. In my experience with this playthrough, the lack of armor combined with the Khajiit's natural movement buffs did a completely adequate job of conveying the agile fighter archetype without the need for these perks. If you do feel the need for taking these perks though, I'd recommend swapping out the pickpocket skill for this one to free up the perks needed for this tree. To me, the heart of the Acrobat is focused on chasing his fortune, the extravagance that it affords, and the thrill of the adventure in obtaining it. It should be a fun, lighthearted, and almost whimsical playthrough, which is why I focused mainly on the perks that aid in building that stockpile of septums and spending it effectively. While the Acrobat would undoubtedly make for an excellent assassin, I felt that betrayed the spirit of the class. Therefore, I actively avoided taking perks too deep in the sneak, archery, and one-handed skills that would lead to overpowered stealth attacks, and focused instead on perks that encouraged adventure and getting into trouble of the less violent variety. If you are drawn to the dark side, however, feel free to follow your bliss and join the Dark Brotherhood. This is your playthrough after all. With this playthrough, I allowed my character to get distracted by fun side quests that promised adventure, treasure, or both. Try not to take anything too seriously, even prophecies of dragons that want to eat the world, and follow the fun. My Acrobat was a good guy at his core, and so would allow himself to become a reluctant hero when necessary, but was much happier chasing gold and novel experiences. Finally, let's take a look at some of the fun gameplay combos that this class allows. While the core combat gameplay of this character is the all-powerful Sneak Archer, the Acrobat's agility did allow for some fun twists to this formula. If you followed the advice in the Roleplay Considerations, you'll likely need a few sneak shots to down a high-level enemy. This encourages you to scramble to find the next vantage point that you can reach with your double jump that your enemy cannot. This really contributes to that highly mobile playstyle that the Acrobat class is all about. While you should be able to use good old sneak archery on just about everything in the game, there are times when you'll be forced into open combat. Or maybe you're just getting a little bored of the sniper stuff and want to mix it up a bit. Fortunately, the Acrobat also incorporates one-handed combat into his play. Open melee combat with this class works a bit differently from other classes that have block or armor skills to fall back on. With no armor and no talent in blocking, this leaves the Acrobat extremely vulnerable when detected. This is where TK dodge comes in. Dodge rolling is something that was available in Oblivion to characters with high acrobatics skill, and it's now available in Skyrim with this mod. I've found that if you manage to dodge past an enemy mid-attack, you'll have just enough time to land a single dual-wield attack, but not a power attack. Once the attack lands, you can dodge roll away to cancel the recovery time of that attack and gain enough distance for another dodge attempt. To set up the extremely powerful dual-wielded power attack, I've found that a single level 1 Foosh Shout works wonders. At the right range, it gives you just enough time to quickly approach your enemy and go all whirling dervish on his ass. Again, make sure to cancel the recovery of this move with a dodge roll back to re-establish your distance once the attack lands. And that does it for another build guide. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If so, please do leave a like and subscribe for more builds. I do plan on exploring more Oblivion classes, but not exclusively, as I have all kinds of original build ideas as well. So stay tuned. And, as always, questions and comments are welcome. If anything is unclear, ask away and I'll answer to the best of my ability. And, more importantly, if I've gotten something wrong, let us all know in the comments so that the correct info gets out there. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.